It's story time. How I met my wife. So I've been married 10 years. And when I was about 20 years old, I moved out of nowhere. I decided to move to Manitowoc, Wisconsin to study theology. Lived there. I started bartending my way through college, which sounds kind of funny because I was studying theology, but I'm Catholic, so we can drink. As I'm bartending at this place called Time Out Sports Bar and Grill, which is a place that I absolutely loved working at. Learned how to bartend. I learned how to cook a little bit better. And man, the giant sports bar vibe, it's like you're hustling, and the more you hustle and the better you are at it, the more money you make. I'd say maybe 6 months to 9 months after I lived there, I'm kind of acclimated. But one day I'm bartending and these three beautiful ladies walk in, and I knew immediately that they weren't from Manitowoc because I would have already known them. Like, it's a small bar scene, and so I know they're not from there, but hopefully, they're from somewhere close because all of them are beautiful. And so I walk up to this table, I'm their server, flirting a little bit. I was like, my goodness, they're all out of my league, so I'm probably just gonna let it go. I'm not gonna do anything. Fast forward like a little bit. Turns out all three of them thought I was super handsome, and one of them was my wife. They left, and I was like, I may never see them again. A couple of weeks later, I'm bartending at night. That was during the day on like a Saturday. Now it's like a Friday night. In walks this girl who was one of the three. This time she's by herself, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I remember her. That's her. I asked her what her name is. We struck up a conversation. I'm just here to watch my friend play music. Well, her friend who plays music worked at the bar and was my friend too. We get to talking, and we talked for like an hour that night and really kind of hit it off. And I was about to, this is a very vulnerable story, to ask her out. And instead I kind of stalled, and then she ended up leaving. Didn't leave me a great tip, by the way. I go up to Riley, our mutual friend, and I say, hey, that girl, Jody, what's her story? Is she cool? Do you think I could get her number? He's like, yeah, man, 100%. I don't want to be a coward, so I'm not going to like text her. Okay. I should have already asked her in person for her number, but I didn't. So I call her and I'm like, hey, I'm John. Let's talk. And so we start talking for like hours a night for a couple of weeks. She lives in Green Bay, right? So we finally make a plan to hang out. We're like, let's go on a date. I'll come pick you up. We'll take you to dinner. Where do you want to go? She suggested Applebee's. Now listen, guys, Applebee's may be the only store that I turned down a sponsorship from. If they came to me and they're like, hey, $1 million, the only thing I can affirm is your Fiesta Lime Chicken, because the rest of your stuff's not that good. So I'm a big foodie, but she wanted to go to Applebee's. So I was like, all right, I'll take you to Crapplebee's. First date, we're having a great conversation. Something stood out. She orders a massive cheeseburger with barbecue sauce. I'm like, I thought she was gonna get a salad. Like, this girl had barbecue sauce on her face. And here's this gorgeous girl just like not caring. And I was like, this girl's awesome. I love this girl. I didn't want the date to end. Okay, dinner was done. We already had talked a ton, so we already knew we kind of liked each other. And I was like, hey, I gotta drive back home to Chicago to see my parents. It's like Christmas break. I'm gonna go and get my mom a Christmas present. Do you want to tag along before I drop you off? And she was like, sure. Now I thought, like, guys, listen, I'm smooth, okay? Looking back, I made two crucial mistakes. This was one. She's like, sure. So we go to Best Buy, and I'm like buying a Christmas album for my mom, and I thought she'd think it was cute. She did not think that was cute. Then drove her to her apartment and dropped her off, and she's like, all right, I gotta go. And it was a little awkward. I find out that her roommate at her apartment is a mutual friend of ours. I had no idea. And so I'd already been getting to know her, and I was becoming good friends with her boyfriend. Well, Jody gets in her car, and she leaves to go hang out with another friend. Meanwhile, her roommate was like, John, come on in. Let's sit down and have a drink. And I was like, okay. So I go in and hang out with her roommate and her roommate's boyfriend, who are friends of mine. I'm there for maybe an hour, 2 hours, which was 1 or 2 hours too long. And Jody comes back to the apartment, and I'm still there. Now you can understand this is where it gets weird, right? Like, why is this guy who, like, we already went on a date, he's still here? Like, is he a weirdo? Like, it didn't look good. She ends up like going into her room and like closing the door, like barely acknowledges me. And I was like, I messed this up. Like, I should have left a long time ago. So I go home, I text her, and I'm like, hey, so sorry. Did not mean to be at your house when you got back. Like, there's nothing you can say. She didn't respond. Next day, I'm driving home to see my parents, and she calls me and apologizes for being rude and says, I really enjoy our conversations, had a really good time on our first date. I'd love to go on another date. Let's try it again. So we go on a second date. Now this date, this is where the story gets a little crazy. She came to me from Green Bay to Manitowoc, and we're like, let's get pizza and watch a movie. We watched 50 Days of Summer, which is the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a horrible movie. It's not funny. It's just bad. As we're walking out to drop her off, the movie's over. I didn't kiss her or anything. We held hands a little bit. I trip up the stairs, literally just fall. Like, I was not nervous, guys. It just was a weird thing. I'm just falling down these stairs, like tripping up these stairs. It was super awkward. And I like tried to make a joke of it. Really, really kind of a bad second date. We go out to her car. I walk her all the way to her car because I'm a gentleman. It was dark out. And I was like, I should probably go for the first kiss, you know? And so let's just say that the first kiss didn't go well, okay? It was a really bad first kiss. I walked back to my dorm, and I was like, this is not going to go well. Like, I was like, this. The next day, we end up calling each other. One of us calls the other one. I forget who. Because we had spent, 30 plus hours talking on the phone. So we really liked each other. But when we hung out, it was just a little awkward. Let's just cut the crap. I'll bring Taco Bell to your house, and we can just hang out. We put Friends on. I hate that show, but we put it on, and we just talked and laughed and held hands and had a way better kiss. So the third date really was the charm. Then we dated for a couple of years, and we ended up breaking up because she wasn't Catholic. I worked for the church for 15 years. She was Lutheran, but didn't know if she she wanted to be Catholic or not. I didn't want to force her. And so she ended up breaking up with me. I actually brought her cheese puffs when she was mad at me after a fight during a Lions game. Her favorite food ever at the time was cheese puffs. And she took the bag of cheese puffs and then broke up with me and then gave the bag back. It was like heart-wrenching. A couple of weeks go by. I'll never forget the advice that my friend Kristen Bird gave me. She asked me like, how are you and Jody? I said, oh, we're kind of broken up. And she goes, well, why'd you break up? And I said, we just kind of fell out of love. And my friend looked at me. It's the best advice I've ever been given. She said, John, you don't fall out of love. Love is a choice. After that dopamine runs out after 6 months of knowing someone or dating someone, you have to choose to love her. You chose to stop loving her. That's fine. You can make that choice, but just don't say things like you fell out of love, because love is a choice and you can choose to love her every day if you want to. It was like a light bulb for me. I was like, what? I want to choose to love her. I don't want to choose to love anyone else. A couple of weeks later, I won a March Madness basketball tournament and won like $3,000. Took the money, I bought a wedding ring, took her to downtown Chicago, proposed. A couple of months later, we got married, and we've been married 10 years. And that, my friends, is the story of how I met my wife. It's been the best 10 years of my life.